a woke classmate mocked Barron Trump during freshman orientation, loudly declaring that God isn't real and faith is just bigotry in disguise, the room fell into stunned silence. But Barron didn't flinch. What he said next, not in anger but in calm conviction, left even the most skeptical students questioning everything. The auditorium lights dimmed slightly as students filed in, clutching their orientation schedules and complimentary campus planners. On the second day of freshman orientation, one session stood out, not for its academic value, but for its unmistakable ideological bent. The auditorium lights dimmed slightly as students filed in, clutching their orientation schedules and complimentary campus planners. On the second day of Evergreen West University's freshman orientation week, one session stood out from the rest, not for its academic rigor, but for its ideological overreach. Civic Inclusion and Belonging, a DEI interactive experience, was listed as mandatory for all incoming students. Failure to attend meant an automatic hold on class registration. Barron Trump sat quietly in the back row. He didn't need a campus seminar to teach him about dignity or respect. He had learned those values the real way, through faith, family, and first-hand experience. At just 18, Barron stood out, not just for his height or famous last name, but for the way he carried himself. Calm, disciplined, unshaken, raised in the public eye, but grounded in something far more important than politics, his belief in God. Unlike many of his classmates, Barron didn't check his convictions at the campus gate. He believed in truth, in tradition, in Scripture, not as some cultural relic, but as the living foundation for right and wrong, meaning and purpose. So as the DEI session began, he prepared, not for participation, but for endurance. At the front of the room stood Dr. Lillian Bozeman, the university's Director of Equity Engagement. Her soft-spoken voice was coated in layers of well-rehearsed language, words like microaggression, lived experience, and gender expansiveness. "Welcome, students," she said, smiling brightly. "This is not just a seminar. It's a space to grow, to dismantle bias, and to let go of the outdated beliefs we've inherited from our past." That last line struck Barron like a silent alarm. She hadn't said, "Challenge your beliefs." She said, "Let go." Dr. Bozeman clicked the next slide. "Your identity is your power." Beneath it were rows of colorful stick figures with different gender labels and pronouns. "We're going to start today with a self-reflection exercise," she continued. "Everyone pair up and answer 3 questions. Your name, your pronouns, and one belief from your upbringing that you've left behind." A murmur moved through the room as students looked awkwardly at one another. Barron remained still. He wasn't here to cause a scene, but he wasn't going to lie either. A girl with pink eyebrows and a mushroom-printed hoodie leaned over to him. "Hey, I'm B, they, them. Want to pair up?" Barron nodded politely. "Barron, nice to meet you." B smiled. "So, what belief did you leave behind?" Barron's reply was simple. "None. I try to hold on to what matters." Before B could respond, another voice cut across the room, louder, sharper, and already heated. Of course he didn't answer the pronoun question. All eyes turned to the front row. Skylar Moon. Her name was as dramatic as her presence. Bright pink mohawk, oversized trans pride hoodie, combat boots with rainbow laces. Her mask hung from one ear like an ideological earring, and her backpack was covered in buttons. "Smash the binary. Religion is regression. Protect trans kids." Skylar stood up and pointed across the room. "That guy right there? Trump's spawn? He didn't say his pronouns. Wonder why." A few students chuckled nervously. Dr. Bozeman's lips tightened. "Let's remember this is a brave space," she said gently. But Barron, if you'd like to share. He stood slowly, calm, grounded. I'm Barron Trump, he said, and I believe in respecting everyone. But I also believe that respect doesn't require ritual. If someone wants to know how to address me, they can ask. I don't think that defines my character. Schuyler's arms crossed. Yeah, that's what bigots always say. Respect, but never for us. Barron didn't raise his voice. I believe every human being is created in God's image. That means you deserve dignity, not because of your pronouns, but because of your soul. That stopped her cold. Created in whose image? She spat. In God's, Barron answered plainly. Schuyler laughed, a bitter, performative sound. Oh, you still believe in that? The invisible sky wizard? Please, God isn't real. He's just a tool used to shame queer people and control women. More laughter rippled through the crowd. Dr. Bozeman looked increasingly nervous, but said nothing. Barron didn't flinch. He looked at Schuyler and spoke, not to provoke, but with quiet conviction. Then why are you so angry at someone you don't believe exists? Silence. The room froze. A few students blinked, taken aback. Even those who agreed with Schuyler weren't sure how to respond. Schuyler narrowed her eyes. You think you're clever, but religion is why kids get kicked out of their homes, why queer teens commit suicide, why I had to leave my church at 14. Barron nodded. And I'm sorry that happened. That's not what true faith does. It doesn't reject people. It lifts them up. But don't confuse misused religion with God himself. Schuyler stepped forward. You believe your Bible says there's only 2 genders, right? So what? You think I'm a mistake? Barron's voice was steady. I believe God doesn't make mistakes. I believe in truth. And I believe that disagreeing with someone doesn't mean hating them. Schuyler's face flushed red. That's exactly what hatred looks like. Standing there, using your God to justify excluding people like me. No, Barron replied calmly. I'm not excluding you. I'm simply refusing to surrender truth to ideology. A few students near the middle shifted in their seats. One guy in a varsity jacket whispered to his friend, Dude's not wrong. Dr. Bozeman tried to steer the conversation. Let's return to our journaling prompts, please. Write down how this discussion made you feel. Schuyler turned to the room, still furious. This is what we're up against. People like him using ancient fairy tales to police our existence. Barron stayed seated now, hands folded. If God isn't real, he said quietly, then none of this matters anyway. But if he is, then truth exists, and we're accountable to it, whether we like it or not. That line landed. It was simple, clean, undeniable. Some students stared at him. Others looked away. Schuyler muttered something under her breath and sat down, slamming her notebook shut. Barron reached for his pen, calm and collected. He hadn't won a shouting match. He had planted a flag. The next morning, the air on campus buzzed with more than just late summer humidity. A short clip from the DEI seminar had already made its way onto group chats and Instagram stories. A video titled, Trump Kid Refuses Pronouns, Defends God, was picking up traction. In the clip, Barron's calm voice could be heard saying, I believe every human being is created in God's image. Then came Schuyler's voice, sharper and louder. God isn't real. He's a tool of oppression. Some students mocked it. Others watched in silence. But a growing number whispered about Barron's composure, how he didn't flinch, didn't shout, didn't insult. He simply stood his ground. By noon, flyers appeared on bulletin boards across campus. The flyers read, Live today at 3 p.m., the Inclusion Now Coalition presents Faith, identity, and harmful language. An urgent conversation. The location was listed as South Campus Plaza. The featured speaker was Skylar Moon. Barron saw one of the flyers after leaving economics class. He stood there for a moment, reading it. Without a word, he made his way to a shaded bench near the plaza and waited. By 3 o'clock, the crowd had gathered. Students in colorful clothing waved handmade signs that read, "Protect trans students," and "Religion is not a free pass for hate." Some held up phones, live streaming the event. Several wore rainbow pins or carried small pride flags. Skylar stood at the microphone, flanked by 2 interns from the DEI office. Her voice was already raised, energized by the crowd. "This is about harm," she declared. "When someone refuses to acknowledge your identity, when they talk about God as if he's the only truth, it's violence, period." Applause followed. Phones zoomed in closer. Skylar pressed on. "Yesterday, in a supposedly inclusive seminar, I was told that God created only 2 genders. That disagreement isn't hate. That truth is fixed. That's not just an opinion. That is spiritual colonization, and it needs to be called out." Someone in the crowd shouted, "Name him." Skylar smiled. "You already know who it is. He's sitting right over there." Heads turned. All eyes fell on Barron, who was still seated under a tree, a book open in his lap. He looked up, closed it gently, and stood. Without being invited, without asking, he calmly walked toward the mic. Skylar's expression tightened as he approached. "This should be good," she said under her breath. Barron nodded once at her, then turned to face the students. "Can I speak?" he asked. There was a pause. Then a few voices answered, "Let him talk." The microphone was handed over. Phones tilted toward him. Comments rolled in on the live streams. Some mocked. Some were curious. All were watching. Barron adjusted the microphone slightly, then spoke. "I came here today because I was told I had caused harm, that my words were violent. But I don't hate anyone in this crowd. I don't judge anyone here. And I don't believe standing for truth means hating those who disagree." He scanned the crowd slowly. "I was raised to believe in God, not a vague idea, not some myth, but a creator, a source of truth, a moral authority that doesn't shift with trends or emotions. From that belief, everything else flows. Human dignity, moral law, purpose, right and wrong." Behind him, Skylar crossed her arms. "This is exactly the problem," she interrupted. "You sound reasonable. You smile. But you're still pushing a worldview that erases people like me." Barron turned slightly toward her, but kept his tone even. "I'm not trying to erase you. I'm refusing to erase God." The words fell heavy. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Skylar leaned forward again. "You make this about you, about your right to believe in fairy tales, while people like me live with real consequences, violence, discrimination, mental health struggles." Barron nodded solemnly. "And I care about those things, deeply. I've worked with churches that support homeless youth. I've spent Christmas mornings in shelters. That's what my faith teaches me to do, to love others, especially those who are hurting." Skylar blinked. He continued, "But love doesn't mean surrendering truth, and truth isn't violence. Truth, when spoken with compassion, is a lifeline." Someone lowered their phone. A few students leaned in closer. From the back, a hand rose. A young man with a backward hat asked, "But what if your truth hurts people?" Barron met his eyes. "Then we have to ask, are we talking about discomfort or injustice? Because truth often makes us uncomfortable, but it's the only thing that sets people free." He paused. "I'm not here to impose my beliefs, but I also won't apologize for them. If we want real inclusion, It has to include people of faith, people who believe in truth, in God, in something higher than self-expression. Schuyler tried again. So you think I'm confused about who I am? No, Barron said. I think you're searching, like everyone else. But I believe you're more than a label, more than a feeling. You were created, on purpose, with purpose. Not by accident, not by politics, but by design. And you're loved by a God who never changes, even when the culture does. He stepped back and offered the microphone to Schuyler. She didn't take it. Her jaw was clenched. Her fists were tight. But her words were gone. Someone in the audience clapped. Then another. Then more. Barron didn't bow. He didn't smile. He simply turned, picked up his bag, and walked back toward the edge of the plaza. The phones kept rolling. But the moment no longer belonged to the live stream. It belonged to every student who had just seen something rare. A young man speak truth without hate, stand firm without shouting, and walk away without needing to win, because he already had. If you're enjoying this story, make sure to subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell so you never miss a moment like this. And tell us in the comments, what state are you watching from? We love hearing from proud, patriotic Americans across this great country. Now let's continue. Campus felt different the next day. Not louder, not busier, just quieter. Something about the energy had shifted since the DEI Plaza confrontation. Word had spread, not through headlines or viral outrage, but through whispered respect. Most people didn't talk about the event in the open, but it lingered in their thoughts, in their DMS, in the way conversations paused when Barron walked into a room. The clip was still circulating online, but not for the reasons Schuyler intended. People weren't mocking Barron. They were sharing the part where he said calmly, "I'm not trying to erase you. I'm refusing to erase God." It wasn't the loudest line, but it was the one that stuck. Later that afternoon, Barron sat alone at an outdoor table near the library. A paperback copy of Mere Christianity was tucked under his arm. He sipped his coffee and opened his notebook. He didn't look like someone who had just faced down a campus activist mob. He looked like someone at peace. A quiet voice interrupted. "Hey, Barron." He looked up. It was a girl from the seminar earlier that week. The one with the yellow pixie cut. B. She shifted awkwardly, gripping the strap of her messenger bag. "I just wanted to say, I didn't really agree with everything you said. Still don't. But you made me think. Like, really think." Barron smiled. "That's all I could hope for." She glanced around, then lowered her voice. "My roommate's been blasting your clip on repeat. She's not even religious, but she keeps saying, 'At least someone actually believes in something around here.'" Barron nodded, then gestured to the empty chair across from him. "Sit if you want." She did, and they talked. Not about politics, not about theology, just about life. Meanwhile, across campus, Schuyler sat on a bench outside the student union, alone. Her phone buzzed with messages, some from friends cheering her on, others accusing her of losing control or getting wrecked. But she didn't respond to any of them. Her thoughts were elsewhere, on the words she hadn't expected, the tone she hadn't been ready for. She had thrown everything she had at Barron, sarcasm, ideology, pain, and he never threw it back. He just stood there and told her she was made with purpose, that she was loved. Her chest tightened. She had screamed at people for less. A friend walked past and called out, "Hey, Sky, you good?" She nodded quickly. "Yeah, just tired." But she wasn't tired. She was shaken, and underneath all the anger, something else was creeping in, doubt. Later that week, Barron received an email from a professor. Subject line, "Thank you." It read, "I was in the back of the plaza crowd. Didn't want to make a scene, but I've taught here for over a decade, and I've never seen a student carry themselves with that kind of clarity and grace. You reminded me why I used to believe." Barron didn't reply with fanfare. Just a quiet thank you and a short message. Truth doesn't change. Sometimes we just forget it's still there. By Friday, something strange was happening. Students who had stayed silent during the seminar were now approaching Barron privately, not to argue, to ask, "Hey, I grew up Catholic but left it behind. Do you really still believe all that?" "I've never prayed in my life. Think God would listen if I tried?" "I watched that clip 5 times. You didn't even flinch. How?" He never gave them canned answers. He didn't preach. He didn't recruit. He just listened, spoke calmly, pointed them toward truth. It was on a Sunday afternoon, one of those crisp golden days when the leaves start to curl and the wind carries a certain stillness, that it happened. Schuyler found him. He was walking alone through the main campus quad, earbuds in, hands in his jacket pockets. She stepped in front of him. No crowd, no cameras, just 2 people. He pulled out one earbud, cautious but not unkind. "Schuyler." She looked tired, less armored than usual. Her voice, for once, was quiet. "Do you really think that God could love someone like me?" No sarcasm, no fire, just the kind of question people only ask when the noise has faded. Barron didn't rush to answer. He studied her face, the pain behind the eyes, the storm beneath the surface. Then he said simply, "I don't think it. I know it." She looked down, then back at him. "I don't know if I believe that." Barron nodded. "That's okay. He still does." She didn't say another word, just gave a tiny, almost imperceptible nod, then turned and walked away. It wasn't a conversion. It was something deeper, a seed. That night, Barron sat in his dorm room with the window open. He could hear the hum of campus life, laughter in the distance, music down the hall, footsteps on gravel. He opened his journal and wrote a single line. "I didn't come here to be loud. I came here to be faithful." Then he closed it. He wasn't a hero. He didn't go viral in the way influencers crave. But in a campus ruled by noise, one voice had cut through. Not with fury, but with truth. Not to win an argument, but to light a path. If this story meant something to you, we want to hear from you. Leave a comment and let us know where you're watching from. And if you believe truth still matters, if you're glad to see young people stand firm in faith, hit that subscribe button and join our community. Because this isn't just about one student. It's about every American who still believes that God is real, truth is not hate, and conviction is worth the cost. God bless you, and God bless America.